Hey there, Grumpy Old Fart here. This is a compilation video of some of my greatest hits. Hope y'all enjoy them.
I'm doing a magic items video, and this is an item that you don't really hear much about unless you're a wizard, because then wizards want them left and right. I've seen wizards kill each other trying to get one of these. It's called a Ring of Wizardry. It is a very potent magic item. It's one of the most sought after items by wizards because it doubles a portion of their spellcasting ability. It makes them more powerful just by wearing it. The description of this item is on page 132 of the Dungeon Master's Guide. I suggest you read through it very thoroughly. Wizards will very much love these in your game, magic users. Essentially, this item doubles the spellcasting ability of any magic user, only magic users, not clerics or druids, but it only doubles a certain spell level. For example, half of the rings of this type double the number of first level spells that a magic user can cast. And if you're a first level magic user and you get one, I don't know why you would, but if you do, it essentially doubles your spellcasting capability. It's quite nice. A quarter of these things double the number of second level spells that you can cast. There are various other types that double up to fifth level spell ability. Usually it's one or two or three spell levels that are doubled. It's not all your spell casting capability, but it's pretty damn nice. That's what I'm saying. This is one of the great little items that any magic user, and sometimes illusionists as well, depending on the dungeon master. And it's up to you if you want to allow illusionists to use them in your game. But magic items will be overjoyed to get these things. They're very powerful. They're not going to destroy your campaign. They make wizards a little bit more powerful. That's all they do. And they're great to stick in a situation where if the players are going to go up against a big bad, it would be nice if a lower level wizard had one of these. They're not exorbitantly powerful, like I said, but they can mean the difference if you need an extra magic missile or an extra levitation spell, or something first, one of the lower levels, because they double up to fifth level spells, but it's only like half of the rings only double first level spells. Then because there's a chart you roll on, if it's 51 to 75, I think it is, it doubles the second level spells. But they're not cumulative, so you either get the first level or the second level, and then the rest of them you get a variety of different things, doubling sometimes first and second level spells, sometimes first, second, and third, sometimes fourth and fifth, sometimes fifth, if I recall correctly. So it doesn't double all the spellcasting capability, but it can give a wizard a nice edge. If you get the opportunity to look this up, do it. It might be worth putting it in your game if your wizard is struggling. But again, with any magic item, be very careful how you do it, because a wizard gave as part of his life, literally, a constitution point, permanently, in order to make this item. So just again, as with all magic items, be careful where you put them and how you use them. This item can give your players a bit of an edge. That's all it is. I equate this to as a fighter having like a +2 sword, or a thief having a +2 dagger, something like that. But that's how I treat them in my game.
Ring of Elemental Command. This particular magic item is rather complex. I always tell younger and less experienced dungeon masters to read through the description of these magic items very, very thoroughly before using them in their games. Regarding Rings of Elemental Command, you need to really take that advice to heart. These things are kind of complex. There are 4 elements, and each ring is attuned to one of them. So this is 4 different magic items in one. You can find them on pages 129 and 130 of the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Dungeon Master's Guide. Again, I cannot stress this enough. Read up on them very, very thoroughly before you use them in your game. First off, Rings of Elemental Command appear as other items, a ring of invisibility, a ring of water walking, a ring of fire resistance, a ring of feather falling, something relatively innocuous. unless the owner or someone else investigates further, or unless the owner or the wearer comes within a certain radius of an elemental, that's all they'll ever be. So if there are no elementals nearby, there's no reason for you to consider anything else. There are conditions, however, which can occur, which are outlined by the dungeon master, which will activate the ring's full potential. This means that elementals of the specific type cannot approach within 5 feet or attack the wearer. The wearer can forego this protection and instead may attempt to charm the elemental. If it feels charmed, if it fails to be charmed, the protection is lost. Can't read my own writing. The rings are also effective against non-elemental creatures from that specific elemental plane. So, creatures from the elemental plane of fire, the ring of fire elemental command will affect, will be effective against them. But keep in mind, it's only against that one plane. Also, the wearer is able to converse with these elementals and other creatures native to their plane. It allows the wearer to talk to them. And that's cool. Finally, each ring gives the wearer the ability to produce magic effects specific to that elemental type. And there's a list in the book. I didn't go into the specific list, but they're there, and it's very impressive. The rings themselves are very, very powerful. I mean, it just without the elemental stuff, the abilities the rings give are very, very potent. So keep that in mind. Once the full potential of these rings is known, they become very powerful items which can seriously undermine your game. Consider very carefully before you put them in here. Keep in mind that these rings do not allow the wearer to actually summon the elementals in question, only to influence or to charm them. Okay? Charmed elementals make dangerous underlings. They can seriously throw your game out of balance. I had a player who had a earth elemental as an underling. It was under his command, and this earth elemental, if you run an elemental properly in your game, they are, oh my god, powerful. Even the less, the younger ones, the less powerful elementals, can seriously destroy virtually anything that they come in contact with. Uh these elementals are exceedingly dangerous. They can throw your game out of balance. So if you're gonna use them, that's fine. Just be prepared for the consequences. Okay. Even without elementals around, these rings are extremely powerful. They can undermine the balance of your game very, very easily. If you plan to put one of these in your game, be sure to allow for this. Otherwise, you're going to find that your players are very much overpowered. Just plan accordingly is all I'm saying. These things are awesome to have in the game. As a player, they're fun. But, because they allow other abilities. Even when there aren't elementals around, they have all these neat abilities. And they really are great. The problem is, as a dungeon master, you have to plan for that. You have to... If somebody has a ring of elemental command in your game, that one player becomes exceedingly powerful. As a dungeon master, it can be difficult to put something in there that's going to now challenge that player without completely annihilating everybody else there. Play balance. You see what I'm saying? So just plan accordingly and be prepared. Don't just throw these things in the game on a random, well, I rolled on this chart. No, that's what he's got. Yeah, that's going to screw you over. That's all I'm saying. I hope this finds everybody. And again, I'm not trying to tell you how to play your game. That's not what these videos are about. I've been playing this game for a long time. I'm trying to give advice to the less experienced dungeon masters. And remember, if your players are having fun, you're doing it right, no matter what I say. The Ring of Bacab. Before I get into this video, however, if you enjoy my content, it would really, really help me out if you would hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, share my content on social media, and post a comment or two. Remember, I welcome your comments, even if you disagree with me. If you enjoy a good book, check out my author page on Amazon. My pen name is H.L. Anderson. You can find all of my books there. I like to think I write good stories that make you think. And I gotta say this, my books are unlike anyone else's. I'm weird. I wrote a 3-book science fiction Western series called Drifters. I'm working on number 4 right now. I have I wrote a fun book. It's just a fun story about a house in New Orleans where the monsters all hang out. It's called The House Off Farrago Road. I wrote a political fantasy called The Righteous President. And I have 2 books. It's going to be a series, but right now it's only 2. The first one is Vanguard 1. The second one is Task Force Terminus. It's futuristic science fiction. It's essentially it's a study of humanity from an alien perspective. I hope you enjoy them. I hope you check them out and really enjoy my books. All right, on with the video. The Ring of Bacab. The Ring of Bacab is one of the more frustrating items for any group of player characters to run up against. That's why they are one of my favorites. Any player characters running against an opponent wearing a Ring of Bacab are in for a nasty, nasty surprise. I like to run this particular item when you have player characters that are in a rut, or they have so many magic items they can't decide which one to use, because that happens in almost every campaign. If you have 5 different magic weapons and you got to figure out which one you want to use, you got too many magic weapons. Magic is supposed to be rare, and this ring will help make that happen. The Ring of Bacab can be found on page 92 of the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Unearthed Arcana. I suggest you read through the description very thoroughly before you put one in your game. If your group has a specific magic item necessary for the completion or culmination of your game, I highly recommend you do not use one of these in your game. Dollars to donuts, one idiot in your game will try and use that specific item to attack or affect the villain in question, and the item will be ruined. The Ring of Bacab has up to a 30% chance to turn magic items into normal items. At any rate, magical effects simply do not affect the wearer. This particular item is insidious and should only be used against groups who have magic items to spare and are smart enough to figure out that something is up. One kink in the hose, so to speak, is that the Ring of Bacab doesn't appear as magical, even under magical scrutiny. Furthermore, and to thoroughly confuse your players, when the ring cancels the magic of an item permanently, it ceases to function itself for from 1 to 4 hours. If you do it right, the player will think that their magic item simply lost its magic for some reason, but will not know why, especially when other players wail on the villain and their items are okay. They fare okay. They still keep their magic items. One of my groups of player characters encountered a powerful wizard who wore one of these. The 3rd player character who struck the wizard had his powerful magic sword drained of all magic. The rest of the group laughed it off and they continued the battle. Eventually, the evil wizard was killed and they looted his body. Thinking the ring was a normal but expensive ring, they sold it to pay for needed gear. Everyone was okay with it and the game continued on. Unfortunately, the sword that was demagicked happened to be the sword necessary to stop the powerful lich later on in the game. They were not aware of this, of course, until they were assaulting the lich's citadel, and they couldn't open the door to gain entrance because that particular sword functioned as the key. Yeah. So the idiot hit the guy with the sword, and the sword lost its power, and the sword no longer functioned as the key. The Ring of Bacab can really screw up your player's day. It can also relieve the group of excess magic items, as well as making them leery of attacking villains at all, especially with their favored items. It shifts their focus and gets them thinking about other things. Check out my video called Shift Their Focus. Yeah, this thing will get the job done. It's one of those powerful items that most player characters don't think about when they attack the bad guy. but they probably should.
Girdles of Giant Strength. One of my favorite items is as a player character in Advanced Dungeons and Dragons is the Girdle of Giant Strength. You can find it on page 145 of the Dungeon Master's Guide, and I suggest you read through it very, very thoroughly. Chances are your players already have. What this item does, very simply, is turn any character except a wizard or an illusionist into a super strong behemoth. It bestows strength equivalent to a giant on the wearer. Now, it says a girdle of giant strength. I usually do a belt because most dudes don't like wearing girdles. I'm just saying. But a belt of giant strength, that's, it's a little more, it's a little easier to wrap your mind around as a dude. Now, what's nice about this particular item is that there are 6 versions of it. Each gives a different strength rating from 19 as a hill giant to 24 as a storm giant, and all the different giant types in between. So, they also get the corresponding bonuses that go with it. To hit and damage, open doors, weight allowance, bend bars, lift gates, even rock hurling. They get to throw rocks like a giant. It's pretty cool. These items are supposed to work well with gauntlets of ogre power, but the description of exactly how is pretty vague. So I'm not sure what you get in addition to wearing both of them. You know what I'm saying? If you have gauntlets of ogre power, that's cool. If you have a girdle of storm giants or a girdle of giant strength, that's cool. Wearing them both at the same time, they're supposed to work well together, but I'm not sure what the added bonuses are. As a dungeon master, and I've been playing a long time. I started playing in 1976. I started running it in 1979. I don't know what I've yet to find the bonuses for wearing both of them at the same time. If somebody knows, please put it in the comments. I'm glad to read it. As a dungeon master, I love these particular items because the different versions allow you a variable so that you can adjust the power level of the item you give based on the level of the player characters in your group. You don't want to overpower the player characters in your group with devastating magic items that, you don't want to give a second level character the strength of a storm giant. That would be grossly inappropriate. If you have a 4th or 5th level character who comes across one of these, strength of 19 would be okay. It's probably a little much, but if they roll a girdle of giant strength, 19 is about the best you should give them. Now, if he's 10th or 11th level or something like that, or if the situation demands a very powerful, they're going up against the big bad, as it were, and he really is a big bad. Girdle of Storm Giant Strength can be quite handy. Just saying. The Gauntlets of Ogre Power. These are some of the more prized items for player characters in the game. Any class can use these except wizards and illusionists. These items are wonderful. As I recall, they might have actually been in the red boxed edition, if I'm not mistaken. So they've been in the game for a long time. These gauntlets are awesome. I've seen versions of these as bracelets, gauntlets, gloves, or other items, But the abilities should all be the same. So regardless of what form they take, they all have the same abilities. This item raises a character's strength in his or her hands, arms, and shoulders to 18 double aught, which means he has a +3 to hit and a +6 to damage. That is phenomenal in the game. Most times, only fighters can get these, but in this case, it allows. Most times, only fighters can get a strength of 18 double aught because fighter types are the only ones that get the exceptional strength with the percentage added on for 18 strength. But this allows clerics and thieves to do it as well. I recommend you read the item description very, very thoroughly. It's on page 145 of the Dungeon Master's Guide. These items are supposed to work well with a girdle of giant strength, but the descriptions of exactly how they work well together are kind of vague. I haven't been able to find it. I'm doing a video on the Girdle of Giant Strength, and it should be coming out soon, so go check that out as well. This is an item, the Gauntlets of Ogre Power are an item that you can give to a player character, a player character fighter who, shall we say, isn't exactly Conan, and it, if you know what I mean. The gist of this is these things make your character better in combat. That's all they do. And if you have a fighter with a fighter in your group that doesn't have the strength isn't really what it should be, and he's not exactly contributing that much, a pair of Gauntlets of Ogre Power would seriously help that situation. And again, I'm not saying you have to do this, and I'm not saying to play favorites. That's not what I'm saying. But if you have a newer player and this player is struggling with a character that's not exactly up to par compared to the other player characters, yeah, this item will help them out a lot. That's all I'm saying. And when you have a new player that can't do anything, they lose interest. If they lose interest, we lose players. The game needs players. That's all I'm saying. Boots of Speed. Boots of Speed are one of the most useful and innocuous little magic items that some players shrug at and they go, oh, that's cool, but what about the treasure? The players that do that are exceedingly dim. Boots of Speed are awesome. To read up on them, go to page 139 of the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Dungeon Master's Guide. Read through the description very, very thoroughly. These boots let the wearer run at 24 double mark base movement. That speed decrease, and that's basically the speed of a fast horse. That speed decreases with the more weight that is carried, but it's still an amazing feat. One thing many players overlook is the number of monsters that can only be hit with magic weapons. While not designed as weapons, a monk wearing Boots of Speed can kick the ever-loving shit out of those creatures because they're magic items. And his feet are the weapons. You see what I'm saying? Also, there's an element of physics to consider. E equals mc squared. Energy equals mass times velocity squared. To translate this into game terms, a normal character charging does more damage on a hit. That assumes he or she is traveling at maximum speed. If they have the distance to get to full speed when they hit, then yeah, that's charging. In my game, I count that as double damage. Imagine charging at a speed of 24 double mark. I count this as 3 times or 4 times damage depending on the situation. Now, imagine a monk charging and executing a flying kick while wearing Boots of Speed. That would be devastating. And you can figure out the math on that. I'm not going to go into that. But monks run fast anyway. They have a base movement that's ridiculous. Imagine a monk with Boots of Speed. Yeah. There is a downside to too much speed. This is something I gotta mention. Years ago, we had a monk in the group with a pair of Boots of Speed. He was zipping all over the place, and everything was going well. He was doing well. As the situation unfolded, we needed the monk to deliver an important message. And 24 double mark simply wasn't fast enough. We didn't have a teleport. We didn't have anything that would get us there quick. No way to deliver a message. So we needed him to run it. The problem was 24 double mark wasn't going to get it done. The fighter loaned him a ring of speed. The wizard cast haste on him. The cleric gave him a number of potions of speed, which he intended to drink one at a time so that, The thief loaned him a bracelet of speed. Yeah. Overall, his speed was 384 double mark. Now, flat out running, now that's the base speed. If you run, you can run 10 times that fast, according to the book. That was a speed of 3,840. And by the way, that's 480 miles per hour. Dude was hauling ass.
Then he ran into a group of enemy soldiers as he was passing by. He was trying to get around them. As he was passing by, one of them got a hit in as he ran by. Yeah, when you set a weapon to catch an incoming charge, you do double damage. E equals MC squared means that the monk took, as I recall, something like 12,000 points of damage. And the worst part is that we never knew that the message never got delivered, which later on caused a total party kill. Yeah. He died instantly, so he wasn't. Nobody in the group knew that he didn't get through, and we ended up facing a huge army with no help. We took out a lot of those bastards, but yeah, our game master at the time, he could roll crits. Let me tell you. At any rate, boots of speed are awesome. If you get a chance, look them up. They're absolutely wonderful. Just be careful how you use them.
Cloak and boots of Elvenkind. They are, as I understand it, they were meant to work together, so I'm putting them on the same video. The boots of Elvenkind can be found on page 139 of the Dungeon Master's Guide, and the Cloak of Elvenkind is on page 141 of the Dungeon Master's Guide. These items are highly sought after and prized by many players. The boots allow at least a 95% move silently, even over a creaky floor or dry leaves. I mean, they're really good. The cloak allows almost total chameleon-like invisibility in outdoor natural surroundings, minimum of 95%. So it's very, very useful. Worst case scenario for the cloak is a brightly lit room and or a well-lit underground area, but there's still a 50% chance of this chameleon-type invisibility, and it works really, really well. Now, you want to read through the descriptions of these items in the Dungeon Master's Guide. Read through them very, very thoroughly, because I guarantee your players have. These items are really, really well. Players want them. They're sought out. People go on quests to find these. I've seen players kill off elves, random elves, just to get them. There's been a long-standing story that these cloaks and boots only work for elves, or that they have they have some magical ability, but they work better for elven characters. And as far as I can tell, this is not true. Any race of player character can use these, and any class can use them as well. I've seen thieves kill party members to get these things. They're so useful. I was playing in a game, and a guy found a cloak of Elvenkind, and the thief in the group waited till he went to sleep and slit his throat and took it. That should have been a flag for the party, but no, it wasn't. They didn't do anything about it. And later on, the thief ended up double-crossing them and taking all the treasure. So, that kind of player you really don't want. If you want a great demonstration of a visual demonstration of what a cloak of the Elvenkind does, watch Peter Jackson's masterpiece, The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. Okay? If you've not seen them, crawl out from under your rock. These movies are brilliant. When Frodo and Sam get to the Black Gates of Mordor, I want to say one of them. I think it's Sam falls down the hill and gets stuck in the dirt, and he can't get out. I think it's a sinkhole or something. And the other one runs down there and is trying to pull him out, and the orcs are coming. An army of orcs is coming, so he throws the cloak over it, and it looks like a rock because it blends like a chameleon. And in my opinion, that is one of the most brilliant, brilliant examples of a cloak of the Elvenkind I've ever seen. It's The guy was standing right over him and couldn't see him. It looked like a rock, you know. But these items are wonderful, and if you want to put them in your game, please do so. Again, be judicious, be very very careful what magic items you put and where, because certain magic items are they'll get your party fighting amongst themselves for them.
Robe of useful items. But before I get into that, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the books that I've written. I enjoy writing different stuff. I'm a published author. I've got books on Amazon under the author name of H.L. Anderson. The stuff that I write I like to think it's different. It's quirky. My wife says it's quirky. It's a little strange, but if you enjoy different stories, the stuff that nobody else is writing, check them out. You might like them. I have a 3-book series called Drifters. It's a science fiction, adventure, fantasy, western series. I don't think it's like anything I've ever heard of. It's completely different. I have a political fantasy called The Righteous President. It's about a president who actually tries to fix things. I have a science fiction adventure called Vanguard 1. It's a study of humanity from an alien perspective. Again, I've seen other science fiction stories, but nothing quite like this. I'm about to have another book published called The House Off Farrago Road. It's soon to be on Amazon. It's a modern-day mythological adventure fantasy type thing. It's just a fun story. I hope you enjoy it. Now, on with the video. This is an advanced Dungeons & Dragons magic item video on the Robe of Useful Items, which, in my opinion, is one of the most useful items in the game. It's not exceedingly powerful, but it'll save your life. Or the life of your character, I should say. There are tons of magic items in this game. Some are powerful, some are just weird and useless. Some just fly under the radar. The Robe of Useful Items is the under-the-radar item of all time. I have never had a magic item save my characters' lives more often than a Robe of Useful Items. The description is on page 153 of the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Dungeon Master's Guide. Be sure to read through it very thoroughly before you put it in your game if you're a Dungeon Master. And if you are fortunate enough to get one, read up on it because, oh my god, it's so useful. As I said, I've never had a magic item save my player character's life more often than a Robe of Useful Items. If you're destitute, you grab a bag of bags of 100 gold pieces. They're on there. If you're stuck in the end of a hall with enemies approaching, well, keep them out. Put an iron door there with a bar. That's on there too. If you fall overboard or your ship is sinking, grab a rowboat off that thing. Yeah. If you're stuck in a hole, there's a 24-foot ladder. There's too much treasure or supplies to carry, or you need a ride, there's a mule with saddlebags. If you're taking too much damage, there's potions of extra healing. If it's too dark, grab a lantern. You need to trigger a trap, there's a 10-foot pole. You need to check something, poke something to see what it is, there's a 10-foot pole on there. You need to climb down a 30-foot cliff, there's a 50-foot length of rope there. Need to carry stuff, there's large sacks. The pesky guide leading you into a trap, grab a dagger. You need to see around a corner, there's mirrors. You need to get through a wall, put a window there. You need guards so that you can get some sleep, there's war dogs. You need more spells, grab a spell scroll off of there. You need some quick cash, you need to buy something and it's a little more expensive than you would like. There's bags of gems, 10 gems. Enemies tracking you need to discourage them. A 10-foot cubed pit works well. The usefulness of this robe is beyond measure. Never was there an item ever more aptly named than the Robe of Useful Items. One of these in the party saves so much of a hassle in carrying random crap. With this thing, whatever you need is literally at your fingertips. Years ago, we were at the edge of a cliff. My wizard was out of spells. We had fought and fought, and we were going to get overrun. The barbarian and I were the only ones left. The barbarian jumped off the cliff knowing he could take the damage. I had no way to defeat I want to say it was 30 or 40 orcs that were coming. So yeah, I jumped off the cliff. And on the way down, I pulled a window off, stuck it on there, and grabbed the ledge. I made a dex check and a half to be able to do that. And I created a ledge to hang on to. Then I used the dagger as a piton, and I stuck it in there. And then I used the rope to tie to that and lower it so I could climb down. The barbarian was down there waiting on me, and I smacked him a good one for leaving me. But still, the robe of useful items will save your life. In another instance, we were in a narrow hallway, and a block was coming down the hallway, sliding. It was at an angle. The block was sliding down the hallway. It was going to crush us. And so I ran as close to this thing as possible on the way down, and I put the window there in the wall because it only goes 2 feet. And I jumped in there and hid. The block slid past, and I was able to get on the other side and go. Yeah, this thing will save your life. A robe of useful items is, oh my God, useful, just like in the name. People get that and go, yeah, it's just a robe. Yeah, they pass it up. I don't. That's an awesome item. If you ever get one, hang on to it because they're very, very useful. The Rug of Welcome. The Rug of Welcome is one of the more useful magic items in the game. It appears and functions exactly as a carpet of flying, like you see in the old movies. The flying carpet from Sinbad and the Arabian Nights and all that. I can't remember the name of the movie. Anyway, but it also performs a few other functions as well. It acts as a rug of smothering, which can trap opponents who step on it. It can also elongate itself and stiffen to become as hard and strong as steel. Thus, it can act as a trap as well as a bridge or a barricade or something like that, depending on what you need. It can be very useful. The Rug of Welcome is found on page 153 of the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Dungeon Master's Guide. The Rug of Smothering is also on that same page, which is kind of convenient, The Carpet of Flying, however, can be found on page 140 of that same book. Be sure to read through the description of these items and, all of them, all three of the different items, before you put it in your game. You've got to really understand them. If you don't understand what the item does, your players are going to misuse it. I guarantee you. Same with all these magic items that I do. If you don't understand them, the players are going to misuse it, and they'll try to get away with whatever they can, so you have to understand them. Years ago, I was running a magic user in my friend Jesse's game. Jesse is an excellent dungeon master. His games are always fun. Our group had been contracted to break into a warehouse and steal a specific item. All was going well until the thief failed a trap check. The device was not a trap per se, but rather an alarm. Before we knew it, over 100 human mercenaries had us surrounded. The fighters and the cleric held them off while the thief tried to find a way out. Unfortunately, they were outnumbered. I used my Rug of Welcome to form a barricade so the cleric had time to heal the fighters, make them last a little bit longer. The thief found the item that we were after, and at that point we were becoming desperate. Fortunately, the thief also found a tunnel, an escape tunnel. So I grabbed my rug and we beat feet. The mercs were hot in our tails. The leader was a big half-orc. The rest of them were humans, but the leader was a big half-orc. I put the rug down at a turn in the tunnel, and I became invisible. The half-orc stepped on the rug, and the others stopped and watched as the half-orc was smothered in the darkness. They figured the ground was enchanted, and they turned around and fled. They didn't like that at all. We were able to make our escape. Rug of Welcome can be extremely useful. It has a variety of different functions, and again, one of the more useful magic items in the game. I don't like handing out magic items willy-nilly, but several magic items, excuse me, are just so useful. If you're going to hand out magic items, you want to hand out stuff like the Rug of Welcome, an innocuous little item called Merlin's Spoon. Not Merlin as from King Arthur, but Merlind, Murlynd, Merlin's Spoon. Merlin's Spoon is one of those innocuous items that most players overlook on the way to more powerful and more dramatic and more flashy items. They want that Holy Avenger or the Staff of Power or whatever. I've been playing Advanced Dungeons and Dragons for over 45 years, and in all that time I've known three players, three players, who actually had one and used it effectively. The item came out in the Unearthed Arcana back in 1985, and I don't know why more people don't invest in it. It's crazy. Merlin's Spoon can be found in the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Unearthed Arcana on page 101. Read up on it very thoroughly. You will see the usefulness of this item immediately. One such item will feed four human beings per day. I have seen players scoff at these similar items, at these and similar items, over and over and over again. I had one player, a self-important little weasel named Gary, actually argued with me that this shouldn't even be a magic item. He argued that it shouldn't even be in the book. He found one, and I guess he expected a plus 25 battle axe of everything slaying. So he snapped it in two and tossed it into the campfire. Everybody thought that was weird, but nobody really thought much about it. Later on, when he and his two buddies ran out of provisions on a prolonged trek through the desert, his two buddies were not happy because they knew what that was. They knew what it could do. Again, I have seen players scoff at that. I have seen players roll their eyes when they see one. I had a group who found a treasure hoard, and one of these was in the hoard. Nobody wanted it because they drew lots and took turns picking magic items from the hoard, and they just left it. Nobody wanted it. They left it there. So a Merlin's Spoon, a magic item, was laying by the side of the road. It was crazy. The one time I actually had to use a spoon of Merlin, we were trekking through the Underdark in search of a magical MacGuffin of world saving, and I was actually playing in the game. We ran out of food, and luckily one of our 6 PCs happened to have one. We went on half rations, and every third day, 2 of us got full rations. It kept us alive for over a month until we were able to raid the pantry of a goblin tribe. We were able to continue on and get the mission done because of that spoon. The point of all this is that while Merlin's Spoon is certainly a minor magic item, its usefulness cannot be denied. It cannot be denied. Pair this with a decanter of endless water, buddy, you're set. You are set. Now, if you'll read the description, the food, the sustenance that this thing delivers isn't exactly a 7-course meal, with pheasant under glass or anything like that. But if it keeps you alive, don't argue with it. You know what I'm saying? It sure as hell beats making another character. All that being said, never overlook even the most minor magic items because they can all be useful. And remember, I cannot say this enough. When you're playing any kind of a role-playing game, it's not what you have, it's how you use it. I say that in every game that I play. I was playing... I say that in just about every game. I'm just going to leave it at that. Makes everything easier. I hope this finds everybody well. And again, I hope y'all enjoy playing Advanced Dungeons and Dragons as much as I do. And don't overlook Merlin's M-U-R-L-Y-N-D, Merlin's Spoon. Don't overlook that. It can literally save your life. In any properly run campaign, where the group or the party or the PCs
the player characters, are on a quest for an item, or are en route to blah, someplace. They're exploring ruins, they're spelunking in an underground temple, or whatever, anywhere they go. Anywhere outside of a town, I should say. Survival is a consideration. Food, water, safe shelter, all these are serious considerations. They're essential. A hidden glade, a cave, an abandoned homestead, an old grotto, anything can be a safe shelter if you use it properly. Knowing basic survival, you can turn anything into pretty much a safe shelter. A person can go 30 days or more without food. Fat people like me, probably maybe 50 days. I don't know. I might actually lose weight. You never know. It's not good, but it's possible. Okay. Fresh potable water is a serious concern. Water weighs 8.3 pounds per gallon, and to my mind, water is the most important of the three survival essentials because a person can only go 3 days without it. 3 days. Rather than carry water barrels or be stuck following streams or rivers, players have to find a way to rehydrate. Drinking your own urine gets a little old after a while, that's all I'm saying. Enter the Decanter of Endless Water. It's in the Dungeon Master's Guide, the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Dungeon Master's Guide, page 142. I suggest you read the description in the Dungeon Master's Guide because I guarantee you that your players will. One of these items can produce all of the fresh potable water your group needs. On top of that, one of its functions can work as a makeshift weapon. It spews water like a geyser, like a very powerful water hose essentially, and it can kill small animals and insects. Just make sure that there's a place for the water to go, or your players may run the risk of drowning if they're in an enclosed area. So just be aware of that. This is one of those less conspicuous items that could easily make the difference between life and death for your party, and it's very, very useful. It's one of those useful items. A lot of people don't really talk about it, but it's one of the first things I go for when I have a beginning character and I get some money. You know, obviously you go to the essentials, armor and weapons, the useful stuff. If you can get like a portable hole or whatever, those are always nice. But you know, magic items are hard to come by. If you're running in a game where the magic user or the dungeon master rather has a magic shop, a magic user running a wizard shop or something, and he's got magic items for sale, see if he's got a decanter of endless water, because those are very, very useful. People don't really think about it. They buy a water skin and call it good. And that, you know, if your dungeon master will let you do that and he doesn't really harp on the water situation, then by all means, that's fine. But if you're playing with a really good dungeon master who's thorough and thoughtful and considers these things, consider a decanter of endless water. My wife, the first time she played in the game in D&D, she actually found one. And she's been enamored with them ever since. As a matter of fact, she's the one that suggested I do this video. And she's absolutely right. They are awesome. So, yeah. Survival being an issue. Food and water is an essential. Food you can go without for a few days. Water you've got to have. So, the Decanter of Endless Water. The Deck of Many Things. One of the most infamous and dangerous items in any campaign. It's on page 142 of the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Dungeon Master's Guide. I suggest you read through it very, very thoroughly, the description in the book, because I can guarantee you that your players will. So many of them probably already have. The Deck of Many Things is really infamous. It's very, I mean, people talk about it a lot. I've known people who got it, and they wanted to get it again. I honestly don't know why, but there you go. The deck, basically the Deck of Many Things, when a player finds it, it allows the player to draw up to 4 cards. They have to state how many they're going to draw, and they have to draw that many cards. Now, they can draw up to 4 cards. Once the last card is drawn, or when a specific card type is drawn, the deck disappears and is gone forever. It teleports someplace else, it just goes away, and that's that. So multiple players cannot draw from the deck. There's more to it than that, but that's basically what it is. Half of the deck is bad, half of it is good. Some of these cards will seriously undermine or unbalance your game. It is possible that only a portion of the deck will be found, when they get it and somebody's already drawn cards from it, basically. There's a chance that a portion of the deck will already be gone. So that 50-50 split may not be accurate. Regardless, the bad stuff is generally worse than the good stuff is good. The bad stuff is really bad, the good stuff is okay. The best thing you can get, the really, really good card, there is the Moon card. I believe it grants 1d4 wishes, which in and of itself can really skew your game. It can really unbalance your game, is all I'm saying. And wishes, by the way, are dangerous in and of themselves. You have to be very careful how you word it. According to the spell description, a dungeon master has to try to warp that spell. So players who use a wish spell have to be very careful how they word it. For some players, the thrill or the risk of drawing cards from this deck is overwhelming. You're going to get players who just want to draw. I want to draw 4 times. Why? I just want to do it. Why? I don't know. I just want to do it. They can't explain it either. It's the risk. I honestly don't know why. I'm not going to go into the psychology of it, and consequently, I'm not even going to try and explain it. But they will, because there's people like that. Someone in your group will try and convince the possessor of the deck to draw all 4 times, and they have to state how many beforehand, and they can't change it. So once they state it, that's that. So just expect it. Somebody's going to try to say, "Oh, get all 4, get all 4." This item is extremely disruptive to your campaign at best. I have never, ever had a good experience with the deck of many things. I have heard of people say, "Well, I did this one time and I got good stuff." Yeah, they can't. I've never seen it. I've been playing a long time, more than 40 years, and I've never seen anybody have a good experience with a deck of many things. I have never had a good experience with a deck of many things. You're going to hear people say, "Oh yeah, some of it can be really good," and yeah, it can. It never works out right. it's the deck of many things, in my opinion, should be considered a cursed item. That's just my opinion. I would seriously consider twice before putting it in any treasure trove. And I'm not saying don't put it in your campaign, but just be very careful how you do it. And be careful where you do it and when you do it. I would be careful which player gets it if you could. It can be so disruptive, and I have seen campaigns go for 8-10 months, a year sometimes, and a deck of many things destroys it all. Gone. And I honestly, I can't even explain it, but it does. So, just be very, very careful when you use it. Word of the wise. The Gem of Seeing. Before I get into this video, I'd like to talk about my books for a little bit. I enjoy writing different kinds of stories, different kinds of books, stuff other people isn't writing about. All of my books are available on Amazon under the author name of H.L. Anderson. If you enjoy a good quirky story, most of my stuff is pretty strange, but if you enjoy a good quirky story, check out my books. I have a 3-book series called Drifters. It's a science fiction, fantasy, adventure, western type thing. It's unlike anything you've ever read. I have a political fantasy called The Righteous President. It's about a president that actually tries to fix things. Political fantasy. I have a science fiction adventure story called Vanguard 1. It's a study of humanity from an alien perspective. And I'm about to have another one published called The House Off Farrago Road.
Again, soon to be on Amazon. It is a modern day mythological adventure fantasy type book. It's just weird, but it's just a fun story. So if you enjoy quirky stories, check them out. On with the video here. Gem of Seeing. There are lots of different magic items in Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. The variety and diversity of magic in the game is astounding. The creators of the game scoured mythology and fairy tales and historical lore and included everything they could find, and then they added a bunch that they made up themselves. One of the more useful items in the game is the Gem of Seeing. You can find it on page 145 of the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Dungeon Master's Guide. Some people refer to this item as a Gem of True Seeing. In my games, that is a separate item. In my world, the Gem of True Seeing does everything a Gem of Seeing does, except that there is no chance of hallucination or seeing through things, etc. Also, the Gem of True Seeing cannot be fooled by anything or anyone, even those of a godly artifact or demonic or devilish nature. It'll reveal things gods want to keep hidden. The Gem of True Seeing is exceptionally powerful. What I like about the Gem of Seeing is that even hidden and secret doors are exposed. Many dungeon masters are very clever in how they place hidden or secret doors, passages. There are times in my gaming career when I've searched a room or a corridor, but I didn't specify exactly where I was looking, so the dungeon master judged that I didn't look at the exact brick behind the table at the midpoint of the corridor, despite the fact that I made my roll. Gems of Seeing eliminate all of that nonsense. Many dungeon masters don't realize how effective these items are when they include them in the treasure hall. But to be fair, many players don't cast Detect Magic on the treasure hall of loose gems and coinage. Jewelry, weapons, armor, rods, wands, etc. Yes, but loose gems? No. That is their tough luck. Any player who doesn't do that deserves to miss out on whatever goodies they exchange for a few coins. I had a player in a game years ago. I gave him, in one treasure hall, and this was all rolled randomly, there was what looked like a small rock and a gem, and he didn't detect magic on any of it. Now, the rock he wouldn't have been able to detect magic on anyway, because it was the Eye of Vecna, because that's what it looks like before you stick it in your eye. The other one was a Gem of Seeing, but he didn't detect magic on any of it, so he didn't know about that. And he spent that, and the Gem of Seeing, I think, as I recall, he got something like 500 gold pieces for it, which is a pittance for what a Gem of Seeing is worth. And it was his tough luck. I never told him to spend it. I never told him not to check for magic. By the way, the Eye of Vecna, he thought it was a rock, so he threw it away. It's laying in a dungeon somewhere. Nobody ever found it. The Mirror of Mental Prowess. This is kind of actually a warning for dungeon masters. Okay. One of the more potent and useful magic items in the game includes a variety of very useful abilities. The Mirror of Mental Prowess is on page 150 of the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Dungeon Master's Guide. Be sure and read up on it very thoroughly before you decide you want to put this in your game, because this thing can wreck your campaign. Okay? The Mirror of Mental Prowess is, in my opinion, best used from a stationary location. Most of the time, adventurers will find it difficult lugging a 5 by 2 foot mirror around. These mirrors are much better suited for after the adventurers have settled down in a stronghold somewhere. This item acts as a crystal ball, a two-way portal, possibly even to another plane, and a very potent source of information about anyone shown in the mirror. So essentially, you can scry on somebody and then ask a question, any question, and the mirror will give you an answer. This can be very useful, a very, very useful tool for a variety of reasons. The problem is, it can be a very useful tool for a variety of reasons. As a dungeon master, if I use these in the game, I prefer to give them to the bad guys. And I do that very, very rarely. The bad guys usually have a central headquarters to work out of, and they can certainly make use of the scrying and portal devices as well as the informational aspects. But here's the problem. Just make sure that you give them out sparingly, especially to the bad guys. To anybody, but especially the bad guys. These can be easily misconstrued and misunderstood by the player character group. The last thing you want is for your players to get the wrong idea that you are cheating. Okay? Scrying is bad enough, but having access to unbridled information just by scrying on them and then asking is outrageous. Your bad guys can find out all manner of information that could be very detrimental to your players. Again, simply by asking. This thing it will throw your game out of balance in a heartbeat. If your players get this, it's going to sound bad. I've seen these things in campaigns when the players get a hold of them. I've seen games where the dungeon master, if he's running it fairly, the dungeon master cannot put stuff against the players, monsters or plots or whatever against the players because the players are using this device. It eliminates the ability to challenge the players because they can find out information on just about anything. Scrying is bad enough. Being able to ask questions from an unlimited source of knowledge about the person you're scrying on is ridiculous. That's all I'm saying. It's outrageous. Regardless, this is one of those items that you want to dole out with an eyedropper. No matter who has it, this mirror can seriously undermine the continuity of your game. It can literally cause your players to doubt your integrity as a dungeon master. As a matter of fact, I was playing in a guy's game a while back. This has been 15, 20 years ago. More than 20 years ago. And his bad guy had one of these. And I kind of sort of, I didn't know, but I suspected that he had one. So it didn't bother me because I kind of knew what was going on, more or less. And but several of the other players were getting very angry because the bad guy knew their plans. He was able to change his plans accordingly and prepare traps for them. He had access to information that he shouldn't have. The players thought the dungeon master was cheating. The dungeon master kept trying to explain, no, there's a reason for this. You just, bear with me. But they wouldn't listen. 3 players actually quit the game over this. It can destroy your game. Okay? And the dungeon master can't come out and say, yeah, he's got one of these, because then the players are like, well, what the hell good is that? Because if a player knows that the bad guy has it and the bad guy knows about them, yeah, what's the point? This thing is overpowered beyond ridiculous. Unless your players are exceptionally mature, very trusting, or totally lacking in cognitive logic, it may very well not be worth it to put it in your game. Think long and hard before putting one of these in your game. This thing can literally destroy your game in a heartbeat. I've seen it happen. So,
in Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, carrying capacity is important because there's only so much gear that a player character can carry. The equipment you carry is important, and the amount of treasure you can carry out is equally important. The whole point of an adventure is to go get treasure and become wealthy. Well, there's only so much you can carry, because modern times, if you break into a bank or whatever and you're going to steal a bunch of money, it's in stacks of bills. One bill's $100, right? Well, when you break into a bank in Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, there's stacks of gold coins. That shit weighs a lot. Buy the books. One coin, no matter what kind, one coin is, they go by coin weight. One coin is 1/10 of a pound. 10 coins weighs a pound. So 1,000 coins is 100 pounds. Okay? Just frame of reference. The two items I'm discussing in this video are the portable holes and bags of holding. Both are very, very well known, very renowned items. They're prized in the game because of that encumbrance factor. A bag of holding is a normal bag, but the inside, at least it looks like one, but inside is much bigger than a normal bag would be able to carry. It's very much more spacious, kind of like Doctor Who's TARDIS. Yeah, the inside's bigger than the outside. You can carry a lot more treasure in these things, and other items too. The only, just be sure not to put anything sharp in there. You're putting something sharp in, like a sword, stuffing it in the bag, you'll puncture the bag, and then everything in it is lost. It might be everything spills out. I'm not sure. It might be a chance of one or the other happening. But the chance that you lose all the stuff you stuffed in there is not good. Just don't put a sharp object in a portable hole or in a bag of holding. You'll save yourself a lot of hassle. A portable hole is a square of cloth. A blanket. It's like a blanket, but much thinner, kind of like a big handkerchief. And when you fold it up, you can put it in your pouch and carry it around. It's no big deal. You unfold it, lay it on the ground, and it becomes an opening 10 by 10. The piece of cloth you're holding is 10 by 10. When you lay it on the ground, underneath it there's a hole, and you can store stuff in there. It's 10 by 10 by 10. Okay, which can be packed with treasure of all kinds. You can load that bad boy with spears and swords and whatever the hell else you want. All kinds of equipment in there, weaponry, treasure, whatever. Stack that thing full. 10 by 10 by 10. That's 1,000 square feet. 10 feet by 10 feet. That's 100 square feet, and then that's 1,000 cubed feet. Excuse me. When you pick it up, you fold it up and put it in your pouch. You're carrying all that stuff around with you, but it weighs just like that piece of cloth. And then later on, you need something out, you unfold it and lay it down, and you can go there and get what you want because it's all there. It's a portable hole. Okay. Very, very useful item. These two items are more well known in the game because they're really so damned useful. Everybody loves them. There is a debate that I need to bring up. People have been debating this for decades, and the debate is, if somebody is trapped in a portable hole, how long before they suffocate, or is it like stasis? They get put in there and they're in stasis until you open the bag back up. I've played in games where it's either way. In my game, we have started to do the stasis thing because if you have to sit down and do the math and figure out how much air is in there along with the person and blah 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 blah, that's a lot of freaking work, and it bogs down the game. Either way you want to do it is fine. It's up to you. As if you're the dungeon master, you decide how you do it. But whatever rule you're going to use, you got to stick with it. Recently, I asked my players, because we were having that debate. I asked my players which ones they would rather do, and the stasis thing is what they would rather do. So that's what we're going with. Either way's fine. Okay. Just be sure when you have a character with a bag of holding and a portable hole, or if they have one of each in the group, just be sure not to put one inside the other. Check the descriptions, read the descriptions of both of the items in the Dungeon Master's Guide for specifics. But the best case scenario you can hope for is that you will lose everything in both items, because both items will go away. That's the best you can hope for, because there's worse things. Remember, in Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, there's always an or worse. And with these, there is an or worse, trust me. Alright, I hope this video helps out you guys that are new to the game, and hopefully it'll help out new Dungeon Masters. These are some of the more useful items. They're not really, really powerful, but they're very, very useful. So if you get the opportunity, check them out in the Dungeon Master's Guide. You might want to leave one for your players so that they can, at least one in the group, so that they can carry around. Otherwise, they're going to have to find some place to bury stuff, and it becomes a hassle. For those of you who don't know, a scrying device is a magical item used to view a person, thing, or area from afar through magical means. There are many such items in the game, including crystal balls, magic mirrors, etc. The most well-known of these items is, of course, the crystal ball. It's on the advanced Dungeons and Dragons Dungeon Master's Guide, page 141, if you want to read up on it. And I suggest you do read up on it. Read it very, very thoroughly, because I can guarantee you your players will. I did a video recently on magic items called Magic Items. Go check that out. In that video, I explained what would happen if you let your players acquire a scrying device and a helm of teleportation. In my game, I usually use rings of teleportation. It's the same thing. Basically, it will be bad. The problem is, the sad part is, that players with spellcasting abilities, like magic users, illusionists, druids, clerics, should they opt to work together, they can duplicate the capabilities of these two items within their normal spellcasting capabilities. This, in and of itself, makes the scrying device teleport item combo less frightening, because they can get spells to do it anyway, and a lot of your players will. These items just make it a hell of a lot easier. Be sure to read the teleport spell from the player's handbook, rather, very, very carefully. The basic teleport spell has some serious flaws. There's a chart that you have to roll on if you're teleporting, and there's a chance you'll end up too high and fall. There's a chance you'll end up embedded in something, that kind of thing. And without the scrying device, a teleport spell can be potentially problematic. Check out the table, and you'll see what I mean. Sorry, critter emergency. Animals driving me crazy today. Anyway, all that being said, a crystal ball or any scrying device can be a source of information that can seriously undermine your campaign. Scrying on specific people to watch what they are doing can ruin a good mystery plotline. Scrying on specific items can ruin a good race to the treasure quest, where the group has to research to find an item, kind of an Indiana Jones thing. Scrying on where it is and teleporting there, that ruins that. Scrying in and of itself can fill in missing pieces of a whodunit puzzle. So if they're, scry on the person who killed so and so, I'm going to scry on this person and just watch him. Eventually, you're going to they will get information that will ruin your campaign. That's all I'm saying. What this boils down to is that as an informational source, not even forget the teleportation part, just as an informational source, scrying devices can seriously undermine any campaign. Be very careful where you put these items in your game, and be very careful who has them in your game. When your players get one, rest assured that they will use it, and they're going to use it to undermine your campaign and annoy you to no end. They've got it, they're going to use it. I'm just saying. Now, on with the Dust of Dryness. Dust of Dryness is one of those odd magic items which most players tend to pass over. In reality, Dust of Dryness is not only an effective weapon versus water elementals and other water-type creatures, but it is extremely useful in arid areas. You can find the Dust of Dryness on page 99 of the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Unearthed Arcana. I suggest you read through the description very, very thoroughly before you put them in your game, as if you're a player, you really need to read up on it carefully. One of the mundane uses of this item is to store water for carrying. As a matter of fact, one of the few times I have used this item in my game was when an NPC used a bag of Dust of Dryness to haul water on an extended exploratory trip. He had enlisted the group to help as to find a trade route across the stretch of desert. At one point, they were attacked by desert nomads in some old ruins. The NPC was killed, and one of the player characters found a bag of marbles on his person. Thinking they would
impede movement of the bandits in a narrow hallway, he basically emptied the bag onto the floor. The 20 marbles each turned into 9 cubic feet of water, and 180 cubic feet of water filled the hallway. The player character and 3 others were trapped inside and drowned. The one player character who knew about what the marbles were, who knew about them, wasn't in the hallway and had not told anyone about them. This is a case in point of where you kept your mouth shut when you should have talked. Because this guy, if they had known, they could have kept the marbles and just beat feet and they'd been okay. Because there wasn't no other water in the area. Now they have too much water and they drown because of this. That guy should have told them. One of the more spectacular uses of dust of dryness is as a weapon against water elementals or similar creatures. A pinch of this dust, which contacts such a creature, will destroy it unless that creature makes a savings throw versus spells. As dangerous as creatures such as these can be, dust of dryness can be an excellent weapon against them. Years ago, my player character had a bag of this dust in my friend Ruben's game. Ruben, I love him to death. He's a good guy, but man, he was a crappy dungeon master. This guy fancied himself a killer dungeon master. His fetish was forcing his players to make up new player characters every single week. He tried to kill everybody off. And being the dungeon master, it's not difficult, you know. He had us make up 5th level player characters and rolled randomly for 2 magic items for each of us. One of my fighter's items was this bag of dust. Through the course of the evening, his NPC villain, a wizard, summoned all manner of creatures to fight us. The culmination of this onslaught happened to be a water elemental. I produced the bag and threw a handful of the dust at the elemental. Reuben read the description of the item and got very, very angry. He rolled the savings throw, and we all saw the natural 1. Suddenly, throngs of warriors mysteriously appeared and slaughtered us all. The wizard had not summoned them. They just happened to appear then and there. As far as I know, that was the last game Reuben ever run. He really was a crappy dungeon master, and after that game, his players all knew it. But that dust of dryness really, really saved our bacon until, of course, the dungeon master decided, oh, that's not enough, you have to die. Yeah. But again, don't overlook dust of dryness. It can be extremely useful as a player. And as a dungeon master, it really helps your players. People say, yes, it can kill a water elemental. But a lot of times they overlook the thing where they can, store water for long trips. You see what I'm saying? It's crazy. The sphere of annihilation. I honestly do not like these things. I really don't. Personal experience, I guess. I don't know. The sphere of annihilation is, in my opinion, one of the most dangerous phenomena in the game. It can be just as dangerous for the controlling magic user as it is for anyone or anything else. More so, even, during the initial attempts at control. The sphere isn't actually a sphere at all, but rather a hole in the fabric of reality itself. Anything coming into contact with this hole is immediately sucked into nothingness, gone forever. It doesn't count hit points, it doesn't count size. You touch it, you're done. That's that. Since it's not a physical thing, it cannot be pushed, pulled, or swatted away. The controlling magic user moves it by mentally manipulating reality around the edges of the hole. The Sphere of Annihilation can be found on page 154 of the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Dungeon Master's Guide. Be sure to read up on it very, very carefully, before you put one in your game. These things can be, oh my god, ridiculously dangerous. Also read up on the Talisman of the Sphere on page 155 of the same book. The Talisman is meant to be used in conjunction, in concert with the Sphere. And, I'm not a big fan of the Sphere of Annihilation for the fact that it can be as dangerous to you as it is to the enemy. A lot of people like it because it's a status symbol. Not to sound bad, ladies, but I don't need status symbols. I'm quite happy with me as I am. If you get my drift. Excuse me. Yeah, I don't need anything to improve my status. I'm good. Also note how certain spells in the description of the item in the book. Note how certain spells and magic items interact with a sphere of annihilation. Also note that the absolute ridiculous chance any magic user under 12th level has to control a sphere, without a talisman. Also note how the psionic ability of probability travel affects a sphere. All in all, that's just the whole. Honestly, the idea of this thing is ludicrous, in my opinion. I have had the opportunity to get them, and I've turned them down. They are very powerful, yes, but they're, oh my god, the danger is much, in my opinion, much worse than than is necessary. That's just my opinion. If you have other ideas, put them in the comments. Even if you disagree with me, that's fine. Years ago, a group of 4-player characters were exploring the ruins of an ancient pyramid. The group split up to search the abandoned rooms faster. And I know, cardinal mistake, right? So the fighter and the cleric entered a very dark room. The cleric had a torch, which ruined the fighter's infravision. Because he had, he was an elf. They saw the static sphere in the corner, and they walked over. The fighter touched it and immediately disappeared. The cleric assumed that he'd been teleported. And he didn't want the fighter to, wherever the fighter went, the fighter to be there alone, so he touched it as well. They both died. And I couldn't say anything. I was the dungeon master. I couldn't say anything. The fighter touched it, and I said, okay, well, he disappeared. And the fighter was like, what? And I said, dude, just you can't say anything. I'll be with you in a moment. And the cleric said, well, hell, wherever he went, he can't go alone. He reached out and he touched it. And I'm like, oh, crap. Okay, well, you're with him. Stay. You guys go over there and sit on the couch, and I'll work with these other guys. The thief and the magic user came in. The magic user immediately recognized it and tried to control it. He didn't say what it was, and he was able to get it under control, so all was well. Later, the thief, who thought it was a valuable item to sell, tried to steal it. So the magic user was the only survivor, and mainly the only reason the thief died was because the magic user didn't tell him what it was. Again, this was almost a total party kill. 3 out of 4 characters dead, simply because they didn't know what it was. I rarely use spheres of annihilation in my games. They can really cause more problems than they're worth. And the other part is, if a character is successful with it, they can use it to kill any of your bad guys, and that's that. Magic items in and of themselves, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, magic items in and of themselves need to be rare. Spheres of annihilation, I mean, oh my god, they need to be a lot more rare. That's all I'm gonna go. I'm gonna leave it there. You folks decide for yourselves.
The Hammer of Thunderbolts. The Hammer of Thunderbolts is a very powerful weapon. I've been playing D&D a long time. It's one of the more powerful items in the game. I suggest you read through the description very, very thoroughly. I can guarantee you that at least some of your players have. The description is on pages 168 and 169 of the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons DM's Guide. And a shout out and a great thanks to my subscriber Retro DM Ray for the suggestion to do this video. I couldn't remember how the Girdles of Giant Strength and the Gauntlets of Ogre Power work together, and I was having problems finding it. He very gently reminded me, this old fart, about this hammer, and much appreciation. Keep those comments coming, because I'm not perfect. I do make mistakes. The Hammer of Thunderbolts is a normal, oversized hammer unless the user has exceptional strength, 1801 and higher, which is usually a fighter type. The user also has to be over 6 feet tall. Now, here's the kicker. In that case, the hammer functions if you have strength, exceptional strength, 1801 or higher, and you're over 6 feet tall. The hammer functions as a +3 weapon and does double damage, which is cool. But if the wielder also wears a girdle of giant strength and gauntlets of ogre power, and knows the hammer's true name, it becomes a +5 weapon. It does double damage dice, and you get to add in all the girdle and gauntlet bonuses as well, and it automatically kills any giant that it strikes. Furthermore, when hurled, and when it hits its target, a great clap of thunder ensues, which stuns all creatures within 3 double mark, which outside is 30 feet or 30 yards rather. Underground or indoors is 30 feet. It stuns them for 1 round. The Hammer of Thunderbolts is one of the most sought after items in the game, and players must be very, very careful how it's used. As a dungeon master, I would very, very sparingly use this thing because it can be very devastating for your party as much as for the bad guys. Let me explain. Years ago, I was playing in a game being run by my good friend Donnie. My friend Kevin, his player character had one of these hammers. He also had the girdle of giant strength and the gauntlets of ogre power. Sorry, still fighting a cold. Anyway, so Kevin's character had the hammer of thunderbolts. He also had the girdle of I want to say it was stone giant strength and the gauntlets of ogre power. But he had them all. And we'd engaged a red dragon. Most of us rushed into melee combat because we were fighter types. We only had one wizard who's being run by, what was his name? I want to say it was Matt. Anyway, so Kevin, we all rushed in except for Matt, who stayed behind Kevin. Kevin, of course, threw his hammer at the dragon. The thunderclap stunned us all. The dragon killed us all in the very, very next round when it got first initiative. Kevin and my other friend Matt, Matt, that's who it was, were the only 2 player characters to survive because the second hammer strike killed the dragon, and Matt's magic user was basically hiding behind Kevin. So you got to be careful where you put these things if you're the dungeon master, because they can be very, very powerful. They can seriously unbalance your game. Items this powerful can easily be used to the detriment of the rest of the party by accident. The cubic gate. Before I get into this, though, if you enjoy my content, it would really help me out if you would hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, share my content on social media, and post a comment or 2. Remember, I welcome your comments, even if you disagree with me. If you enjoy a good book, check out my author page on Amazon. My pen name is H.L. Anderson. You can find all of my books there. I like to think I write good stories that make you think. I wrote a 3-book science fiction western series called Drifters. I wrote a fun story about a house in New Orleans where the monsters all hang out. It's called The House Off Farrago Road. I wrote a political fantasy called The Righteous President. And I wrote, I've gotten 2 of them so far. I'm working on the 3rd. It's a futuristic science fiction space warfare kind of thing. It's a study of humanity from an alien perspective. The first one is Vanguard 1. The second one is Task Force Terminus. Hope you get them. Hope you like them. Now, back to the cubic gate. One of the more useful and treacherous items in the game is the cubic gate. The description of the item is on page 142 of the Advanced 142 of the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Dungeon Master's Guide. The cube has 6 sides, kind of like a D6, and each face is attuned to a specific plane. One of the faces is always attuned to the prime material plane. So you've got the prime material plane and 5 others. If your campaign entails any kind of romp through the cosmos, leaping from plane to plane, the cubic gate can be an indispensable aid to your players. because one face is always attuned to the prime material plane. They can get back home from any of the others, from any plane, literally. If your players encounter some extraplanar enemy or monster that they are unprepared for, the cubic gate can help to effect a quick getaway. Just keep all of the player characters within 5 feet and you're good to go. You got to read the description. Okay. I recommend that you read up on the cubic gate very, very thoroughly before you put it into your game. Got to read up on this thing. Okay. There are 5 sides of the cubic gate yet to be determined, and according to the book, the planes are attuned to the planes that they are attuned to can be chosen by any means desired. If your campaign is a cosmic romp through the planes, I suggest you make at least some of those faces attuned to the planes that would benefit the group. Do not make it the holy grail or the Rosetta Stones of their journey. Some faces of the cube should be to useless or dangerous planes. After all, we wouldn't want to make the player characters feel like they've been handed the keys to the wormhole generator, right? Do that and your players get soft. You don't want that. I also highly recommend that the part of the quest to retrieve the cubic gate be exceedingly difficult. This item is extremely powerful, and any extraplanar entity worth their salt will covet such items. Once in possession of such an item, the player characters will undoubtedly be targeted by very powerful beings and creatures who want it for themselves. Kind of like artifacts. Anybody who gets an artifact, yeah, I may do a video on artifacts next week. I'll do that. Anyway, do not go easy on the player characters. When these creatures show up to try to get it, the player characters have to understand how important and how powerful such items are. Being able to travel from plane to plane with ease is the dream of many devils, demons, daemons, etc. Not to mention powerful wizards and clerics. Not all those who would seek such a device are extraplanar. Some of them just want to go there and get stuff and come back so they can make themselves more powerful. Greed is a hell of a motivator. Years ago, my son found a way to use a cubic gate to save the player character group from a powerful foe. They'd had some seriously bad die rolls. Most of the party was down. He lured the foe away and used the gate to transport both of them to the first plane of hell. Then, in the moment of disorientation for the monster, he ran away and used the gate to return. The monster had no way of getting back. And if you're not familiar with the first plane of hell, that's Tiamat's domain, the 5-headed evil queen of evil dragons. Yeah, she was not happy about that thing being dropped off on her doorstep. That thing just showed up. She had no idea how it got there. She was not happy. Yeah, that monster didn't last. Tiamat is exceedingly nasty. Cubic gates can be a great boon for the party. They can also be very, very dangerous. Play it as such. When a group of player characters gets a hold of an item that is extremely powerful, it's always been my practice to make sure other creatures, extraplanar creatures, powerful denizens of whatever, wherever they are, other people are going to want it. And they'll want to show up and take it. So having a powerful item like that, once word gets out, there's going to be people showing up to get it. They may not all be human. They may not all be denizens of the prime material plane, but somebody's going to want it. That's all I'm saying. It's not just the cubic gate, but the cubic gate is one of them. That's one of the more powerful ones. I recommend you play it as such. Yeah, it can be a boon. It can also be a detriment. So just keep that in mind. Make sure your players understand the dangers associated with it. Because if they don't know, that's another aspect of it. If they don't know which planes it goes to, it could go to a plane that they can't survive on. For example, well, this is the prime material plane, but what does this one do? And then everybody within 5 feet gets sent to the plane of elemental fire, or the fourth plane of hell, or blah 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 blah. It could be dangerous. I'm just saying. They got to know which side goes where. They've got to understand that before they use it. So identify and other research is extremely important. Identify might not get that done with this because there are different cubic gates. I'm just saying. They open up the different planes. Anyway, so just keep that in mind. Do your research. Read up on it before you put it in your game.
Wand of Wonder. In every Dungeons and Dragons world, no matter who the dungeon master is or what the world is like, there are those half-crazy, egomaniacal, power-hungry wizards who dream up schemes and plots to try and control everything. They're generally called bad guys. Towards that end, they also dream up ideas for more magic items that nobody should have. Things so powerful that it literally turns the world topsy-turvy. Then there are those insane magic users with the craziest sense of humor who create magic items that are so unpredictable that they may do more harm than good. Enter the Wand of Wonder. The Wand of Wonder can be found on page 136 of the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Dungeon Master's Guide. Be sure to read up on this item very, very thoroughly before you use one in your game. If you're the Dungeon Master, you really want to read up on this before you put it in your game. And if you're a player, if your Dungeon Master allows you to read up on it, take that hint too. Read up on it very thoroughly. The Wand of Wonder can be used by any class, and its effects are totally random and unpredictable. When used, it can help harm or befuddle the user, and there's no way of controlling it. Anything from a gust of wind to summoning a rhino to growing grass to petrification, and it's all random. Excuse me. I've seen players use one of these as a joke and then and literally turn the party leader into stone. Another player used one out of desperation as he was being attacked by orcs. He thought he became invisible, but the orcs could still see him fine, and they proceeded to hack him to death. I was in a game years ago when a thief needed a distraction, so he whipped out his Wand of Wonder. Instead of distracting the city guards, he obliterated them with a fireball, along with the tavern they were in and the entire city district before they got the flames under control. Then there was the cleric stuck in quicksand who aimed her Wand of Wonder straight up and activated it. Yeah, don't ask me why she did it, but she did. A full-grown elephant appeared and crushed her down into the quicksand. People, I have seen players who get a hold of a magic item like this, one of the more unpredictable ones, like the deck of many things or whatever, and they want to use it, just to see what happens. Yeah, it can be fun. It can also be deadly. I have seen players use a Wand of Wonder and kill the party. I have seen players do the same thing with a deck of many things. I have seen players who, for whatever reason, I don't know. I don't know if they're not taking it seriously or if they're not. They're just they want to be chaotic. They epitomize chaotic neutral for some stupid ass reason. But other players tend to pay the price, and it's not fair, in my opinion. Wand of Wonder can be fun. Don't get me wrong. If you're using it just to see, that's one thing. If you're going to rely on it, that's a whole different critter. I mean, that this thing can really, really foul up your day. Oh my God. Wands of Wonder are one of those items. They can make the game fun, but just be careful and be prepared for anything. Whatever you do, do not rely on it to save your life, because it's not a 50-50 chance if it saves your life. It's about a third helping, a third hurting, and a third just stupid. I mean, honestly, read the list of things that could possibly happen. It's all there on a chart in the book, and just doing it as a lark when there's nothing on the line and in a clearing where you're the only one there, maybe, but Doing it in a crowded tavern, yeah, that's bad. That's a bad idea. Just saying. I knew a guy one time who did it. We were in a tavern, and we had just finished a mission, and we were in hurting status. We were going to visit the tavern, get something to eat, and then we were heading over to the temple to get healed. Most of us were very low on hit points, and this guy did a fireball right there in the middle of the room for no damn reason. For no reason. And killed the entire damn party along with most of the people in the tavern. As I understand it, if I recall correctly, there was a serving girl who had gone into the back, into the back room to get another several bottles of wine or whatever, and she heard the explosion and the fire engulfed the place. She was able to crawl out a window. As I recall, she was the only survivor. Everybody else in there died. Just because this guy said, "Oh, it's a wonder, I'll try it." Bam! Just on a lark. For no reason. Our characters were like 12th level. We'd worked them up and got them up to 12th level. And this guy killed us all for nothing. Just because he wanted to be stupid. Wand of Wonders, again, I avoid them. If I get one, I'm glad to sell it to somebody not in the group so that we can get as far away from it as possible. That's my take.
There are many magic items available for the Dungeon Master to assign to specific treasure hoards that his players can find. And I did a video last week called Magic Items, Treasure, Magic Items. Go check that out, because you don't want to assign too much. But out of all these lists of different magical items that you can put in there, if what you want is not on that list, you can feel free to create an item, however you want. They have what's called a helmet teleportation. Generally in my game, they have rings of teleportation. Makes it a little easier. But, and also keep in mind, you can only wear 2 rings, one on each hand. Magical. Otherwise, the rings don't function. Okay. Any dungeon master would be hard pressed. It doesn't matter what kind of magic item you want to put in a game. If you want to give the players a very useful item, any dungeon master would be hard pressed to create a more useful magic item for a fighter, any kind of a fighter type, than his in your game. You'd be hard pressed to find a better one, a more useful one than a Rod of Lordly Might. It's on page 133 of the Dungeon Master's Guide. And this is just one of the best weapons and items that you can get in the game. I've seen player characters kill each other over it, trying to, I want it, no, I got it first, no, and one guy dies and the other guy gets it, This item it's called a Rod of Lordly Might. It is a multi-function item. It's essentially the Swiss Army knives of the AD&D world. And it is, here we go. It's a rod with a little knob at the end. And just as it is, it functions as a +2 mace. There's a number of different weapons, different buttons that do different functions. It extends a blade out to become a +1 sword of flame, a flaming sword. Another button, it's a pops out a battle axe. It's a switchblade battle axe. Another button extends it out and it becomes a +3 spear. There's other spell-like functions. It causes paralyzation. It causes fear. One great function of this is it drains hit points from an opponent by touch. So you touch them with it, and it drains their hit points and gives them to you, kind of like the vampiric transfer kind of thing. It transfers hit points from the victim that got touched to the wielder that did the touching. So it's quite useful. It becomes a climbing pole. You hit a button and it extends out and becomes a climbing pole. And according to the book, if you got a door here or the wall opposite it, you put the thing against this wall and hit the button and it'll knock that door open. A great little door opener. And according to the book, it has the equivalent strength in that aspect, same strength as a storm giant, a strength of 24. That's pretty damn nasty. It also becomes a compass. It acts as a compass and a depth meter, so it can tell you how deep you are roughly, approximately, underground, which is very useful in a lot of gaming. Okay. There are some downsides to this thing. First off, it cannot be recharged. But and because some of the functions, the paralyzation and the fear like that, they require charges. The rod cannot be recharged, but the mace, the spear, hang on, my page got folded. The mace, the spear, the climbing pole, the compass, the depth meter, they all work forever. You got to go to page 133 and read it in the Dungeon Master's Guide to understand it completely. These items, the rods of lordly might, are so very useful that I highly recommend you make these exceedingly rare in your campaign. Like I said, they're such a useful item, and they're so great to have. I've had player characters kill each other trying to, I want it, no, I want it, no, I get it. Boom, 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 boom. One guy dies, the other guy gets it. Him's the breaks. But, and it's going to sound bad in that respect, you cannot stop the player characters because ethically one could conceivably kill the other for it. At any rate, I hope that this video is useful for all you fledgling dungeon masters out there, and even for the newer ones, for the ones not so fledgling. The item that I'm working on now that I'm going to talk about is the Staff of the Magi. Staff of the Magi is on page 134 in the Dungeon Master's Guide, and I suggest you read through this item description very, very thoroughly because I guarantee you your players will. They may already have. This is one of the most potent items in the game. These things are sought after. I've had a number of player characters that I've run that had them. They're very rare in the game, in my game, for a reason. You have to be very, very careful where you place these things in your world for your players to acquire because they can seriously unbalance your game. Not only that, they have an ability called a retributive strike that I'm gonna get into later. And for some unknown godless reason, players want to do it. I don't know why. Don't ask me. It's not my thing, but they'll want to, and that's the main reason. These things are very powerful. They're up there along with some artifacts. They're very potent items. You got to be very, very careful. A Staff of the Magi has many, many functions. Detect magic, light, knock, enlarge, protection from good or evil, pyrotechnics, web, invisibility, hold portal, dispel magic, fireball, lightning bolt, pass wall, wall of fire, ice storm, whirlwind, conjure elemental, plane travel, telekinesis, and all these cost various number of charges. It gives you a +2 to save on all saving throws versus magic. This staff can be used to absorb magic users' spell energy. It does have a serious limit, so you got to read up on it. But it's used to recharge the staff. Okay, but you got to be very careful because if you absorb too much, it doesn't tell you how much spell energy you're absorbing. It's not like a rod of absorption. This thing just absorbs. If you use the ability, it'll just absorb it, and if you absorb too much, the retributive strike thing happens. So you got to be very, very careful. Just read the description. You'll see what I'm talking about. And this is one of the only 2 items capable of being broken for a retributive strike. And I'm going to get into that right now. Essentially, Possessor says, fuck it, if I'm going out, I'm taking all you bastards with me. And he pulls it out, boom, and he breaks it. It has to be an intentional, stated thing. He breaks the staff explodes in a 3 double mark, which is 30 yards outside, 30 feet inside. Basically, it's a blast radius. The damage of this blast radius is 8 times the number of spell levels of energy, or the number of charges remaining in the staff. For example, if there are 15 charges left, the damage would be 120 points of damage. 15 times 8. 8 times the number of charges left. If there's 10 charges, it'll be 80 points. You see? And the people in it have to save versus magic, and so they can take half damage. If they don't make their saving throw versus magic, they take the full blast. The mage breaking this staff has a 50% chance to either plane travel to another plane, which can in and of itself can be very dangerous, or being totally destroyed. It's a 50-50 chance, and for some unknown godless reason, I have no idea why, players want to take that risk. I'm not saying that it's a good thing. I'm saying that that's what they do. Don't ask me why. It's like I did a video on the deck of many things. People want to draw all 4 cards. Why? I just want to do it. Okay, And again, this retributive strike is obviously a last act of a desperate man or woman, unless you're a player character who suddenly decides, fuck it, I want to see what it does. Because I've seen that happen. Don't ask me why, but I have. And if the group's all standing there, guess what? They all get zotted with that blast. I'm just saying. I started playing D&D a long time ago. I've been running Dungeons and Dragons since 1979. I've been doing this a long time. And I'm trying to make videos for advice for players that new dungeon masters can use, and it'll help them in their game. That's what I'm trying to do. The magic item that I'm going to talk about today is the Staff of Power. And again, I'm not saying this is how you do it. I'm giving advice that you can take or leave as you want to. The whole purpose is to have fun. I'm trying to help you out here. Okay, again, the item I'm going to talk about today is the Staff of Power. This is on page 134 of the Dungeon Master's Guide, 134 of the Dungeon Master's Guide. I suggest you read through it very, very thoroughly, the description, because I guarantee you your players will. This is one of the most potent items in the game. It can seriously unbalance your game. So be very careful when and where you place these in your world. If your players get a hold of one, I guarantee they're going to love it. And this is one of the few items that there's only 2, I think, that you're allowed to do it. It allows you to do what's called a retributive strike, and for some reason players gravitate to that. I want to do it. I want to do it. Why? You die. I just want to do it. I got a 50% chance of survival. It's a 50-50 chance you either die or get sent to another plane. And I'm going to talk about all this here in a minute. But for some unknown godless reason, players want to do it. I don't know why. It's like, I talked about this in the Staff of the Magi video. The deck of many things, for some reason, players want to draw 4 cards out of that. I have no idea why. It's tempt fate. It's just a game, kind of thing. I don't know. All I know is, when I rarely ever give out a Staff of Power or a Staff of the Magi, because they're very, very potent items and they can seriously unbalance your game. Staff of Power has many functions. Continual light, darkness, 5-foot radius, cone of cold or fireball, levitation, magic missile or lightning bolt, ray of enfeeblement, shield, 5-foot radius, globe of invulnerability, paralyzation ray. I mean, all these cost various things, and for this or that, you roll randomly, 50-50 chance for which one is the staff can do, because they sometimes do different things. It also acts as a +2 ring of protection. It acts as a +2 weapon. And if you expend 1 charge, you can actually do double damage with it. You can't do triple for 3, but you can do double for a charge expended. The staff can be recharged. So, these things are exorbitantly powerful. This is also one of the only 2 items that is capable of being broken for a retributive strike. Essentially, the possessor of the staff says, fuck it, if I'm going out, I'm taking you all with me, and he raises the staff and intentionally, and he states it, I'm going to do the retributive strike, and then he breaks it. Okay? Breaking the staff as a retributive strike is terrifying. The staff explodes when it's broken like that in this retributive strike. It's a 3 double mark radius explosion. It's either 30 feet inside or 30 yards outside. And the damage of this blast radius is enormous. It's 8 times the number of charges that are remaining in the staff. So if it has 15 charges left, it'll do 120 points of damage, because 15 times 8. If it's got 10 charges, it'll do 80 points. 10 times 8. Whatever, however many charges are left in the staff, times 8. That's how much damage is blast radius. Players, anybody in there in that radius that gets hit in that blast, they have to save versus magic, or they take full damage. If they make their save, they take half. But it's ridiculous. The mage breaking the staff essentially has a 50% chance of either plane traveling, or to another plane, which can be extremely dangerous because it's a random plane, or being totally destroyed. And if you're totally destroyed, there's no resurrection. So players who think, oh, I'm just going to die, I'll just get resurrected. No, completely. It didn't say dead. It says destroyed. It's a whole different critter. This is obviously the last act of a desperate man or woman, but I have seen players chomp at the bit to do the retributive strike just to see what happens. I've had entire parties wiped out by these things. They're nasty. Be very careful when you hand these things out. They're not meant for everyday use. That's all I'm saying. They're very potent items. They're up there along with some artifacts. There are artifacts that are less powerful than these.
Artifacts and relics, and I'm talking about these in general. Okay? I'm not going to talk about any specific one. One of the most exciting aspects of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons is discovering a magic item. Be it a ring, wand, sword, shield, whatever. The AD&D DM's Guide and the Unearthed Arcana list a wealth of such items. Furthermore, there's no rule that the Dungeon Master can't create specific magic items for his or her campaign. Therefore, the quantity, quality, and variety of magic items in the game is almost unlimited. The artifacts and relics, I think, are listed on pages 155 through 164 of the AD&D Dungeon Master's Guide. Be sure and read up on them before you decide to put them in your game. These things can seriously unbalance your game. One of the most sought after and prized magic item types is the artifacts and relics. Artifacts and relics are powerful singular items whose origins are usually shrouded in mystery. A few, such as the Hand of Vecna, the Eye of Vecna, the Teeth of Dalvernar, etc., the Sword of Kos, have their origins with specific powerful historical figures. Regardless, when you consider putting one of these items in your campaign, make sure that these items do not throw your game out of balance. If you give an artifact to a character, the rest of the group will not only be envious, but they may resent the new owner. This will sow mistrust and enmity in the group. Such disharmony can destroy a group. If the group is too low level, the artifact will make mincemeat out of monsters or adversaries intended for the lower level group. Conversely, if you alter the monsters or adversaries to fit the artificial power level of the guy who has the artifact, the rest of the group suffers from being underpowered, and they're not going to have a heck of a lot of fun. Powerful creatures and other entities are drawn to artifacts. If a powerful entity, for example, a demon, a devil, an arch demon or devil, a powerful dragon, whatever, is in the area and senses one of these things, he's going to try to get it. And even if it's a good artifact, he'll still try to get it because he wants to destroy it. He didn't want it used against him. So what I usually do is use an artifact as an object of a quest that culminates in the destruction of the artifact, a la the One Ring. Using the artifact must be extremely dangerous and or costly, and they usually are. The artifact is usually sought by a powerful bad guy who wants to use the item to perform some foul deed or deeds, like controlling or destroying the world. The person carrying the item should suffer severe ill effects to prompt the group to share the burden. In one campaign years ago, I clued the group into a tidbit of information regarding the Dwarven King, who was one of the nicest and most just rulers in history. This king, who was everybody loved, was suddenly gearing up and planning for war with the surface world, and that was so shocking to them because they'd met the man. They're one of the few that one of the group had actually helped him ascend to the throne by uncovering a plot. So this was a personal thing for them. Upon investigating further, it was discovered that the king had come into possession of an artifact called the Axe of the Dwarvish Lords. I used the stats from the Dungeon Master's Guide, but then I added a few. He automatically changes his alignment to lawful evil, and he had an overwhelming desire to rule the world and enslave all other races. Now, those attributes are not included in the description for the Axe of the Dwarvish Lords, but it made for a really great campaign. It really did. Of course, the group was motivated to steal the axe and destroy it, especially the dwarf and the paladin in the group. They were, oh my god, motivated. This campaign was one of the best I ever ran. It took several years in real time and was enjoyable for everyone involved. Everybody had a lot of fun doing this. Dodging dwarven military units who were sent out to find this thing, dwarven paladins who were sent out to find it. And it just, specific servitors of the king were sent out to find this thing. The group had a lot of fun with that one, let me tell you. And they did end up destroying it, and it was just so much fun. Just remember, artifacts are so very powerful that they can easily destroy your campaign. Use them with extreme caution. And this is going to sound bad, but you can't really give one artifact to the group, because everybody, especially if it's one they're going to keep, because the rest of the group will get jealous and envious of it, and you can't really blame them. So just be mindful of that. Not everybody is as mature as they need to be in the game sometimes. So when you just be mindful. All right.